Ethical means rules of life and what's believed to be right and wrong. Legal means what's right and wrong according to law. Health and safety is the regulations and procedures intended to prevent accidents and injuries in a workplace or environment. Ethical and legal issues in research are held by the British Association of Sports and Exercise Science, otherwise known as BASES, Code of Conduct. This course all this covers all aspects of ethical and legal issues in research. This includes ethical clearance, meaning that research can't go ahead if the people involved are protected. Informed consent, they can withdraw at any point. Confidentiality and anonymity, meaning no names of participants are given away and personal details and many others will be covered later on in more detail. Ethical and legal issues are important because they ensure the safety and welfare of the people who are involved. This includes the participants, researcher, and the institution that is being held in, and who the researcher works for. This ensures that the researcher only does research that has to be approved and doesn't change the experiment, and they make sure that the results are accurate and not changed. There are also implications for not working within legal and ethical guidelines. An example of this would be a fine. This would be spoken in more depth later on. The origins of ethics in research. In World War II, the prisoners were held in concentration camps. The Nazis used prisoners to conduct research on them against prisoners' choice. The purpose of these experiments was to help the Nazis understand the different temperatures and the effects on the human body. The prisoners were subjected to emotional and physical trauma to the point where some of them would even die. Before 1947, there was no accepted code of conduct for human experimentation. After World War II ended and the Nuremberg trials were going on, where the research that the Nazis had been done was closely looked at about how they were treating people. From this came the Nuremberg Code that consisted of 10 points which must be considered and closely followed by the researcher if humans are involved in any kind of trial. After this Declaration of Helsinki, which is a modified version, came about in 1964. This was produced by the World Medical Association. From those two rules came a very established set of ethical principles. The 10 points of the Nuremberg Code are: the first one is voluntary consent of the human subject. This means that the person involved should have a choice and there is no element of force, bribe, or duress on the subject, meaning that they have legal capacity to give consent. The subject should also have sufficient knowledge of what the research involves and all of the risks and potential hazards and effects on their health. Second one is the experiment should be such as yield fruitful results for the good of society, unproducible by other methods or means of study, and not random or unnecessary in nature. This means that there has to be a reason for the experiment that will come to help people and is not unnecessary to do or that can't be done in a safer way. The third one is the experiment should be so designed and based on the results of animal experimentation and knowledge of the natural history of disease or other problems so the anticipated results will justify the performance of the experiment. This means that there has to be enough evidence that it's believed that the experiment is worth doing, and also that if it's some on animals first and you get an idea of what will happen with the results and if it will endanger the human participant. The fourth one is experiments should be conducted as to avoid all unnecessary physical or mental suffering injury, meaning that there has to be things in place to avoid all of it. The fifth one is no experiment should be conducted where there is prior reason to believe that death or disabling injury will occur. This means that if there is reason to believe the subject could get majorly injured or die, the research should not go ahead with it. The sixth one is the degree of the risk to be taken should never exceed the determined by the humanitarian importance of the problem to be solved by the experiment, meaning that the amount of risk should be under the amount that is determined by the humanization, meaning that you should always measure it up to the top standard, and if it goes above at any point, the experiment should be discontinued. The seventh point is proper preparation should be made and adequate facilities provided to protect the experiment subject against even remote possibility of injury, disabling, and death. This means that the place that it is done, the equipment must be safe and should not risk injury. For example, the facility that they're using should be sterilized if needed, and it should be clean and safe, and there shouldn't be any points where they could get injured. The eighth is the experiment should be conducted only by scientifically qualified persons. The conductor should have a degree specific to what they are doing and have a high degree of skill and care throughout. During the 9 days during the course of the experiment, the subject should be at liberty to bring the experiment to an end if they reach their physical or mental state. This means that they have the right to withdraw at any point, like in the middle of the test, before, or even after they've done the test and they don't want the results to be shared, they can withdraw from that. The final point is, during the course of the experiment, the scientist in charge must be prepared to terminate the experiment at any stage. This means if the scientist believes the participant could get injured, they will stop the experiment. BASES. This is a very important organisation to support science where scientists could be credited. You have to fulfil several criteria to have a certain degree of competence, experience, and qualification. If you fill these criteria, you could become accredited BASES scientist. By having this label, it is very good for your status and credibility as a researcher. The Ethics Committee. Organisations or establishments such as universities must have ethics committees. This is a group of people of your particular study who are specialised in the particular area and are knowledgeable. Before conducting research, you need to complete a research proposal form. In this, you will need to say who you're going to study and how you're going to go about it, and what is involved in the procedures and what you're intended to gain from this. This study and the expenses, because the ethics committee need to weigh up if you get ethical clearance or not. They may sure everybody is protected and they refer you if you have minor amendments. That means you have small issues that you need to fix, or major amendments, so you have bigger issues that you need to fix, or they might even say that you can't do it because it's not ethical and they won't let you. Participants must give informed consent. This means that they know exactly what they are experiment going to experience and why it is and what the risks are. They need to sign a form saying that they know this and they're happy to continue. They also need to know that they have the right to withdraw and can leave at any point if they choose, or if they change their mind. They should be volunteers and not coerced into taking part or bribed, and they should be willing. All information from the study or that they share should be confidential and not shared personal details such as names. You should also have to be competent and know what you're doing. You're also responsible for the people in the study and should act professionally. You're not allowed to deceive your participant if you admit something and not tell them or just lie. The participants, they will have to have a participant screening to make sure they don't have any medical conditions or injuries that can endanger them. You have to make sure your research doesn't break any laws as well within it to ensure everyone is safe. This could mean making sure that they warm up and cool down properly and check equipment to make sure it works and it isn't going to break or broken to injure them. A risk assessment for the activities for their well-being, risk benefit analysis to weigh up if the benefit is greater than the risk. Finally, scientific misconduct to make sure that they aren't biased and they don't change results so that they say what they want them to say. The consequences for the participant, they could be physically harmed or psychologically harmed, and they should be debriefed as well after. As a researcher, if there are any issues or problems with the study, you may need ethical training in the future. You could also go to prison if you break the law or seriously harm someone. You could be reprimanded or suspended from your job as well, or fined significantly, or lose your BASIS accreditation. And by losing that BASIS accreditation, you would lose your credibility and your professional status because you wouldn't be as high up anymore because you aren't credited by BASIS, and employers would prefer if you were, because that shows you have a better accreditation in what's happening.